We got everybody here. Guys, thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the Iran Maximum Pressure Campaign. My name is Zach Nunn. I am privileged to be the RSC's chair for the Task Force on National Security. As an Air Force officer who is still serving, we have seen firsthand, many of us on the stage, both as veterans and as professional operators, the threat that Iran poses. Everything from supporting and directing Islamic terrorist groups, being the #1 sponsor of state terrorism, including in my time where I flew operations off the coast of Iran and supported directly the initial preparation of the battle space for the strikes that President Trump took against Soleimani, sending a direct signal to the IRGC. Over the past 4 years, though, we have had an absence of leadership in holding Iran accountable. During this time, there have been over 175 attacks and 400 rockets and missiles fired at U.S. shipping. Billions of dollars in illicit oil sales, primarily to China, unrestricted progress on nuclear enrichment, over $800 million funneled directly to Hamas, who has taken and held U.S. citizens as hostages, and Hezbollah, who has directly launched attacks on U.S. forces, tragically killing 3 U.S. servicemen in the last months alone. This horrific reality is a direct result of the Biden administration's failed ability to confront the largest sponsor of state terrorism in the world, to the tune of $80 billion per year. Today, along with my RSC colleagues, I am proud to say that the era of lax U.S. foreign policy towards Iran is officially over. This morning, I introduced the Maximum Pressure Act, which includes the toughest sanctions package ever proposed by Congress. This legislation codifies President Trump's maximum pressure campaign that he announced on February the 4th of 2025. The legislation aggressively targets Iran's illicit oil production, their direct funding of terrorism, both in the region and throughout the world, including at our southern border, and their unrestricted nuclear ambitions. Colleagues, it is far past time that the U.S. hold the Houthi rebels in Yemen accountable, that Hamas in Gaza no longer strike out at its allies or U.S. citizens, that Hezbollah in Lebanon and throughout the Middle East be held accountable, and most importantly, that the Ayatollah know the United States will no longer allow Tehran's unadulterated terrorist activities. For this, we all applaud President Trump for his leadership for this long overdue change to U.S. foreign policy, particularly in the Middle East. So let us all be very clear. The U.S. is the global arbitrator for peace, while Iran holds the title of world's largest sponsor of terrorism. The facts could not be more clear on this. Today marks the beginning of a new era of U.S. foreign policy that restores peace through strength, both in the United States and all the way to the Middle East, by leveraging all the tools of statecraft to put America in the driver's seat of our global security. My friends, I am privileged to have, watching my six, our very own chairman, August Pfluger, an Air Force veteran, F-22 driver, and now our leader at RSC. Mr. Pfluger.
I'd like to thank Congressman Nunn for his leadership on the National Security Task Force, and I'd also like to thank Representative Ben Cline, who is the vice chairman of the Republican Study Committee and has pushed very hard. Both of these gentlemen have pushed very hard for this package, for this awareness, and to right the wrongs of the last 4 years. This is the toughest Iran sanctions package ever, as Representative Nunn said. The Enforcing Maximum Pressure, which is holding Iran accountable RSC initiative, is a coordinated slate of complementary bills that will put America in the driver's seat on these dealings. What you will hear today from our colleagues are individual bills that come together to place that pressure back on Iran, something that there was a vacuum for the last 4 years. As part of this campaign, I'm introducing the No Iranian Energy Act and reintroducing a bill to remove the sanctions waiver authority to permanently freeze all Iranian sanctioned assets, which will cut off Iran's financial lifeline. And again, President Trump hasn't just earned our gratitude, he deserves unwavering support as he revives the maximum pressure campaign against Iran's leaders, the world's most dangerous sponsors of terrorism, state sponsors of terrorism. And the Iranian regime isn't just a threat, their leaders are a genocidal death cult. Make no mistake about their strategy. They view Israel's destruction as the beginning of their evil plans. And let's contrast what's happening today with what has happened over the last 4 years. In March of 2023, President Biden enabled Iran to access $10 billion in frozen assets under the guise of humanitarian purposes. On September 11th, 2023, a date that we all know as a tragic date, not just in the United States of America, but around the world, the Biden administration approved a $6 billion transfer of frozen Iranian funds from South Korea to Qatar. And throughout 2024, even after October 7th, the Biden administration repeatedly renewed waivers allowing Iraq to purchase energy from Iran. I mean it seriously. Let's think about that for a moment. Those are just three of the many examples of the negligent actions taken by the last administration. And all I have to say is thank goodness we have a real leader back in the White House. President Trump has taken many decisive actions in the first few months of his administration to stop, to put a halt, and to prevent the chaos, the terrorism, and the state sponsor of terrorism throughout the region and throughout the world that Iran sponsors. And we're not going to watch from the sidelines. RSC is taking a stance on this. Let me be clear. Iran's terrorist proxies will face overwhelming consequences for attacking American ships in international waters. And as President Trump said yesterday, the choice for the Houthis is clear. Stop shooting at U.S. ships, and we will stop shooting at you. Otherwise, we have only just begun, and the real pain is yet to come for both the Houthis and their sponsors in Iran. So the Republican Study Committee isn't just talking tough here. We're delivering a clear message to Tehran. America is back. Your terror funding days are numbered, and your regime will face consequences that even the Ayatollah cannot pray away. I thank you all for being here. I'd like to introduce my good friend from the state of Florida, Representative Greg Stubbe.
Thanks, August. And it's an honor to be with each of my colleagues up here. It is time for Washington to finally hold Iran accountable, once and for all, as the largest state sponsor of terror in the world. And I'm honored that one of my bills, the Iranian Terror Prevention Act, that will codify and implement President Trump's recent national security memorandum imposing maximum pressure on the Iranian regime. And when my bill passes, the State Department will be directed by Congress to divest and designate 29 terrorist organizations linked to Tehran as foreign terrorist organizations, along with any entity affiliated with the IRGC. As someone who served in the Middle East, who served in Iraq in the War on Terror and Operation Iraqi Freedom, I think I'm shared with a lot of veterans up here who also served. We know firsthand Iran's support of Shia militia groups in the region, and we, as the United States of America, have to stand strong against that. We have to stand for freedom, and we have to stand for righteousness and not terrorism. And today, this bill brings justice back to the United States. Claudia?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to our chairman and everyone for being here, and my colleagues, and being such strong leaders on this issue. This is a really important initiative from the Republican Study Committee, and as you heard Chairman Pfluger talking about a compilation of a number of bills, including Mr. Stubbe's bill and others. And, as we saw under the Biden administration, the Iran regime was more emboldened. They bolstered its terrorist proxies around the world, which we've seen in real time, training, funding, and intelligence as well, all while expanding its nuclear stockpile, which is of great concern to the United States. In contrast, in his first 100 days in office, President Trump has taken decisive action to counter Iran's malign influence by issuing National Security Presidential Memorandum Number 2 to reimpose the maximum pressure campaign that we saw under the first Trump administration under the leadership of Secretary Pompeo. Now, with the United States once again taking the lead to the charge to counteract with our allies, our E3 allies, with France, Germany, and the UK, our allies must follow suit and immediately invoke what I call the Snapback sanctions on Iran before the ability to do so expires this October. So to send a strong, unified message from Congress, I, alongside Congressman Gottheimer in the House and Senator Pete Ricketts in the Senate, we introduced House Resolution 139, a resolution calling on the United Kingdom, France, and Germany to initiate the Snapback sanction regime on Iran under the UN Nations Security Council Resolution 2231 back in 2015. So invoking snapback sanctions will restore the UN sanctions on Iran that were lifted by the Obama administration's failed Iran nuclear deal, including export controls, travel bans, asset freezes, and other restrictions on those involved in Iranian nuclear and missile activities. This bicameral and bipartisan bill sends a strong message to the E3 that it needs to step up and stop enabling nuclear expansion by the Iranian regime. It's time for snapback sanctions now. And I'm grateful again to the leadership, Congressman Pfluger and others, Congressman Nunn, and our veterans behind us, many of whom served in this. Maximum pressure is necessary. I applaud the president for doing this, and it's really important that we do that and get our partners across the world to recognize the great danger of Iran having a nuclear weapon and making sure our partners join with us. And I, again, advocate for snapback sanctions. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce our chair, Brian Stile, chair of the Administration Committee, and talk about his bill. This is me. I'm the chair.
Thank you, Representative Tenney. Thank you for your leadership, Chair Pfluger, Vice Chair Klein, Congressman Nunn. It's absolutely essential that we work to hold Iran accountable and enforce the maximum pressure campaign. The legislation that we're talking about today is essential across the board. The package as a whole is, as Chairman Pfluger said, the strongest package put forward, and it's essential that we do it as Iran is the leading state sponsor of terrorism around the globe. I want to talk about one bill in particular, the No Sanctions Relief for Terrorism Act. This goes back to a failed policy of the Biden administration from 2023. In late 2023, the Biden administration waived a sanctions waiver and provided access to Iran to $10 billion. This was a mistake by the Biden administration, and it emboldened Iran and provided funds that we know Iran will ultimately use to sponsor terrorism around the globe and attack our allies. The bill prevents future administrations from being able to do what the Biden administration did. It prevents waivers for sanctions unless they can show that the state that's receiving that waiver has actually ended the funding of terrorism. The good news is President Trump is in office. He's rolled back these terrible Biden administration policies and has moved us in the right direction, but we need to make sure that no future administration makes the mistake of the Biden administration. So I'm calling for full support to the No Sanctions for Terrorist Act, and I applaud all of my colleagues here who are standing up for freedom and liberty. I now have the honor of introducing the great congressman from South Carolina, my friend, Joe Wilson.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen and friends of a free Iran, what an honor to be here, and I appreciate our colleague from Wisconsin, what an important state Wisconsin is today, and we appreciate his leadership. And then I'm really grateful for the leadership of Chairman August Pfluger, Ben Klein as the vice chair, and Zach Nunn leading the effort for national security with the Republican Study Committee. And I'm here today to introduce 3 pieces of legislation to support President Donald Trump's efforts to have the agenda to counter the brutal regime in Tehran that is victimizing the people of Iran. With that in mind, I am just so grateful that President Courageous is so important to stop the ability of Iran to have a nuclear capability, which is being assisted by war criminal Putin. And so over and over again, this is important. The legislation I have, the Maximum Support Act, with Congressman Jimmy Panetta of California, would support the ongoing efforts of Iranian people fighting for freedom and democracy by empowering them against the Iranian regime. There are support for technologies for the Iranian people to get around the internet, restrictions by the regime. Maximum pressure in the regime must be coupled with maximum support for the people to help them have a free Iran. As we saw in Syria, the more brutal the dictator, the weaker the regime. And we saw Bashar al-Assad flee, very appropriately, to Moscow. And so the message is clear. The people in the Middle East truly do want to seek freedom, and freedom will ultimately prevail. Secondly, I'm grateful to introduce the Free Iraq from Iran Act. I've had 2 sons serve in Iraq to help liberate that country, and so it's particularly sad to me to see Iran's interference with the people to run their own country. Unfortunately, the Iranian regime has infiltrated Iraq, fulfilling their malign agenda through influence and control of the Iraqi government, judiciary, and security forces. This bill will counter the Iranian regime network in Iraq and support the Iraqi people. And finally, another bill that's very important. America must counter the network of Hezbollah, working with cartels in the Western Hemisphere. It's so sad that there must be no Hezbollah in Hemisphere Act to expel terrorists smuggling drugs, human trafficking, and intelligence operations. And so working together, I'm just so grateful again for the leadership of the Republican Study Committee. Thank you very much. And hey, now I get to introduce a superstar who's returned to Congress. He had a brief interlude, and now he's back. Marlon Sussman, all the way from Indiana.
Wow, what a great introduction, and now the pressure. But thank you to my colleagues with the RSC and Chairman Pfluger and Vice Chairman Klein and Zach. Thank you for your leadership on this. You know, there's so many days we come to Congress and we think about the job ahead of us and what we're here to do. But we all know at the end of the day, we're here to make America a strong country for our children and grandchildren. And so that's why I'm proud to stand here today to support the maximum pressure bills. I mean, there's no secret that Iran's regime poses a direct threat, not just to the stability of the Middle East, but also to the United States of America. America has the ability to walk softly and carry a big stick, and this is the stick. Iran does not ever learn. They are going to continually be the terrorist supporters that we have seen them for years and years, and they will only be able to be stopped by having us and our allies put tremendous pressure on them with economic sanctions. And we know that if they have the ability to sell their oil around the world, that's only going to continue to fund more terrorist activity, and we need to put a stop to it. I'm proud to support the Maximum Pressure Act, a critical step in safeguarding American interest and global security. And as we all know, they are going to continue, and we actually have a strong leader now. We've stumbled over the last 4 years in our position in the world with dealing with Iran, and they've taken advantage of that. And I am proud to stand here with my colleagues to put the line in the sand and know that our president is going to do the right thing in leading and making sure that America's safe, that the Middle East is stable, and that we're going to stand with our allies in Israel and others in the Middle East to make sure that Iran can't do more destructive damage. So thank you again, and it's my honor to introduce freshman colleague, Mr. Troy Downing from Montana.
Thank you. And first, I want to thank Representatives Nunn, Pfluger, and Klein for their leadership, and for all of my colleagues here for standing up for what's right, and also for the Republican Study Committee. So RSC's efforts to codify President Trump's maximum pressure campaign and hold Iran accountable is incredibly important. There's a lot of us up here who have served, seeing this firsthand, as Representative Stubbe put. But put plainly, these efforts could not be more timely. On the other side of the world, Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen are attacking U.S. ships and disrupting global trade, while the Ayatollah's regime looks to step away from the negotiating table on a nuclear deal. But here in Washington, Republicans in Congress could not be more serious about imposing the toughest ever sanctions on Iran to thwart the development of its nuclear program and to dissuade its support for terror across the globe. In the face of Iranian threats, we're showcasing once again that when we work together in lockstep with President Trump, we can deliver real and lasting pain for America's enemies and those who wish our allies harm. Thank you again to my colleagues on the Republican Study Committee for your leadership. God bless our troops. God bless America. And I'm going to yield to my fellow Air Force veteran, Don Bacon.
Thanks for being here. Most of the salient points have been made, so I won't repeat all of them. But I do like to share a personal experience. I deployed to Iraq in 2007 and 8. I came there during the surge. We were losing about 120 troops a month. At that point, was the peak of that fight. But as time went on, we whittled down Al-Qaeda, and the bigger threat became the Shia militias that were targeting Americans, and they became the biggest threat at the end. And these Shia militias were armed, funded, and led by Iranian IRGC. We lost 609 Americans from those Shia militias that were directed by Iran. 609 families that were lost a son or daughter, husband, wife, or mom or dad. That's a lot. We should never forget it. But it doesn't stop there. We also lost sailors on the USS Cole from Iranian-run terrorists. We lost those Marines at the towers in Beirut, the dorms, from Iranian terrorists. And Khobar Towers. We lost mainly airmen there that were killed by a terrorist that was Iranian run. My friend, Tim Hahn, was killed in that attack. America should not forget what Iran has done, and we should not forgive until this regime is kicked out.
We know that if Iran gains a nuclear weapon, will become an existential threat to Israel and our country. We cannot let that happen. So we want to have our foot on their neck economically and try to prevent every penny coming in or going out. With that, I get to introduce my friend, Dave Joyce.
Thank you all and good afternoon. As has been stated, for decades, Iran has been both the largest sponsor of terrorism in this world, and the Biden administration emboldened this regime by tolerating Iran's threats against American citizens and U.S. interests. President Trump will end these threats now, full stop. He understands that allowing Iran to obtain nuclear weapons is an unacceptable risk. The Trump administration and Congress, as you can see, are going to work together to ensure that we take an aggressive approach against Iran and its influence. America will always stand against the sponsorship of terrorism and violence that targets our citizens and our allies like Israel. I look forward to leading the charge with my colleagues here today, and I now look forward to, as we all do, to answering any questions you may have.
Go ahead, and we'll call up anybody that is a subject matter expert if you have specific. Let me just say real quick, the people you see here come from different committees. Everybody serves on a different committee here in Congress, not just on the Armed Service or the Intel or the National Security Committees. But what you see today is the Republican Study Committee putting national security back into the national dialogue. It's a conservative word. We believe in national security. We believe in protecting Americans everywhere. Couldn't be prouder of the members that are on this stage and some that are not, that also have an interest in this. And with that, we'll go to questions.
Thank you, Congressman. So Congress has made little progress in codifying the president's executive orders. Are you worried at all that Republicans might be falling behind and really cementing Trump's agenda?
No, not at all. And in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we stood here with our RSC set in stone policy package of 8 different pieces of legislation that did exactly that. They're advocating for the executive orders, for the codification of those executive orders, for the agenda that we know is a mandate. We're working very closely with the White House, with the administration, and as we've heard from leadership in the last, in fact, just as recently as today, that they are working very diligently with the committees of jurisdiction to make sure that we do codify. I think you see that with the CRAs that are being passed, some of which have been signed into law, that are doing the things that President Trump said he would do. And we're all looking forward to getting to that reconciliation package so we can further the codification. Does anybody else have any words on that?
Thank you. My name is Arash. I'm with Iran International TV. 2 questions about this package that you have introduced. Number one, the Ayatollah was speaking to masses 2 days ago in Iran after the month of Ramadan. And what he said about sitting down with President Trump in negotiations is that if the Islamic Republic in fact sits with the United States, it shows its weakness. And therefore, you and your colleague and what he calls the Zionist regime would increase the pressure on the regime. So that's why he doesn't want to directly talk to the United States. I want to hear your reaction on his thoughts. And also yesterday, his advisor, Ali Larijani, told the Iranian press that if Iran is being bombed by the United States, it would leave Iran with no choice but to march toward nuclear bomb. What do you think about these 2 questions?
Iran has no leverage. Iran has no friends. Iran is a pariah. Iran is by themselves. And the only choice they have from President Trump is to make sure that they never attain a nuclear weapon. That is the only choice that they have. This package, the strongest Iran sanctions and security package delivered to date, does exactly that. It sends a message to Iran, to the Ayatollah, that the Iranian people are not the target. It's the leadership that wants to gain a nuclear weapon and wants to continue that pariah state of sowing chaos and terrorism throughout the world. So they have 2 choices. One, they can make sure that they announce loud and clear to the world that they will not attain a nuclear weapon, or they face the consequences. And I think they're lucky that they have somebody who is so strong, President Trump, who has delivered an off-ramp for them. If I were them, I would make the choice of announcing loud and clear that they will not attain a nuclear weapon. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Nunn.
I think August said it directly. Let's look at the situation here. The Ayatollah has tried to have conversations with the United States in the past, and the Ayatollah has failed. The Ayatollah has been a coward at every moment where he could have done the right thing. The Ayatollah has chosen to punish the Persian Farsi people in a massacre that has existed for now more than 45 years. The Ayatollah is the one who is pushing Iran towards the precipice. And the Ayatollah is the one who's not only destabilizing the Middle East, but is the same entity who's attacked U.S. forces, U.S. citizens, and now shows up on the southern border of the United States and threatens America's national security.
If I may follow up on that question, what do you think about the advisor of Ayatollah, who yesterday, as I said, he was saying that if Iran is attacked directly, it would change its nuclear doctrine? What's going to happen?
Right now, Tehran has a very clear off-ramp, and that's to enter into negotiations in good faith with President Trump, who has laid out not only a roadmap for the Persian Farsi people to be successful, but for Iran to have a future here. And it simply means stop funding terrorism, stop avoiding the sanctions regime, come to the table, de-escalate, and end a nuclear regime that only ends in death for potentially hundreds of thousands of people in the Middle East.
Can I just add?
Yeah.
No one really believes that Iran's not seeking a nuclear weapon right now. Okay. No one really believes that Iran is not seeking a nuclear weapon right now. They're on that pursuit, and we got to stop it. And for them to say, if you attack us, we're going to pursue it, they're not being truthful.
But they're saying they're going to increase their enrichment.
They're doing it now, and we just got to know it. They're pursuing a nuclear weapon now, and we got to stop it.
As further verification, not only are they pursuing a nuclear weapon to vaporize Israel and ultimately the United States, they're developing ICBMs, which can only be for one purpose, and that is to deliver a nuclear attack against the American people. And so that's why I'm so grateful that we have a president who understands peace through strength. And President Trump has been very clear, and that is that it's very simple, and that is stop the development of nuclear capability and then provide absolute verification that all has stopped. And there must be verification, not the charades we've had with the previous administrations. And so we have Iran can have a bright future by stopping the development of nuclear weapons, stopping the development of ICBMs, and then work with the wonderful other countries of the Middle East. And we see such an example. Now Syria is free. The dictator's gone. He's in Moscow with war criminal Putin. And so the message is clear that indeed for the people of Iran, what a bright future they can have without the dictatorship.
Last question.
Look, let me add before you go to Herb, and that is you're afraid that Iran is saying that if President Trump acts, that they will get in high gear. They're not going to have a chance. Let me tell you, when President Trump decides to act, things happen. Ask Soleimani how that works. I would also say to the people of Iran, Maryam Rajavi and others, there's hope coming. So they need to be full of hope, because if and when President Trump decides to act, you can kiss the regime's goodbye of the Ayatollah. I yield back.
We've seen, Kilmany Dukart with Newsmax, we have seen growing discontent in Iran over the economic situation right now. If the U.S. intelligence community is saying that Iran isn't building a bomb, and I'm referencing DNI Gabbard's comments last week during her testimony, is the goal of these sanctions primarily regime change?
I think that is something that only the president can answer. What we're doing here is to compile a suite of legislative actions, different legislative bills that put pressure on Iran to stop doing what we know they've been doing for years, which is seeking a nuclear weapon. And I think utilizing intelligence, having the negotiations that President Trump has referred to, will hopefully resolve some of the issues that we've seen, and will hopefully result in a positive action.
What's your level of confidence, though, that this package is going to work? We saw during the first Trump administration a very tough pressure campaign, and in fact, Iran accelerated their program.
Look, I think that this is a different time, it's a different day, it's a different era. We have 4 years of weakness. The Iranian regime doesn't respect anything but strength. And that's really the only thing that we can come to the table with. And I think that's why you see the Republican Study Committee, a conservative group, believes in deterrence. But you can't have deterrence without credibility. That's credibility of our military, which we are regaining and have. It's credibility on the legislative side with different bills that offer the president tools that he can use, tools that the administration can use. Gone are the days of having weakness which invited aggression, weakness which unfortunately resulted in the further decay of Yemen, more transport of different precision-guided munitions through Iraq, through the Levant, through Syria, into places like Lebanon. And all of those things should be considered as halted because of what President Trump is doing. And I'll yield to anybody else.
Very quickly. Yeah. I think we're in a different spot, too, from where we were under the first Trump administration. We've seen directly a lack of enforcement of sanctions that are already in the book. Billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars being paid by China for illicit oil on tankers that can be spotted on a map today that are not being stopped. We've seen Iran try its best rebut. 300 weapon systems fired at Israel. And who stood in the breach? The Israelis, led by the United States, backed up by Britain, France, Jordan, and other Arab partners who came to the table to collectively hold Iran accountable. We have seen the IRGC decimated. We have seen Hezbollah pushed back in the north. We've seen Hamas nearly obliterated from the map. And we have seen a ragtag group of terrorists out of Yemen being striked repeatedly here in only the first 10 weeks, something that didn't happen for the last 4 days. The entire suite of statecraft now is being brought to bear against Tehran. And it's more than, I would say, a pushback here. It is cutting off their very ability to maneuver in this space. The Ayatollah wants regime change, and the Ayatollah needs to come to the table and have a conversation about a future for the Iranian people, not be trying to dig centrifuges in the middle of a desert, because our allies and the United States will be very quick to end that campaign. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, they gotta go vote.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.